Okay, all right. Thank you for coming in tonight or today. We're going to talk about part three of our three-part series, which is we're going to talk about wholesaling systems, KPIs, and virtual wholesaling. So let's go ahead and jump right in. Okay. So just to kind of recap real quick, the first session that we did, we talked about the buyer's first strategy. And the reason we did that first is because it's really important to understand where you're going and what your end goal is, right? So we talked a lot about how to find buyers, how to search public record, how to find buyers around, if you have a property at 123 Main Street, how to go out and search for buyers who bought like properties recently at a price that matches up with what you're selling, right? So we talked about that. We talked about how to market to those people because they're not all the same. You have, sorry, admitting people here. So you have landlords and then you have rehabbers. So those are your two main types of buyers. And you talk to them, you market to them different because they're looking for different things. Landlords are looking for a return on everybody's looking for a return on their investment, but landlords specifically want to know how long it'll take to get them their cash back, right? And then with rehabbers, the fix and flip guys, those people, they want to know, they generally have an idea of how much they need to make per flip. Like I just got off the phone with somebody and his number was 40,000. So, once you understand what buyers in a market are looking for per flip, then you understand how to talk to them. But inside of all of that, once you have that data, because data is really the most important thing that you can gather in your business, how do you use that information to shape where you go out and find properties? Because again, you could be the greatest person talking to sellers, putting properties under contract, but if you get all of your properties in a town with 2,000 people, there's probably not going to be a lot of buyers or demand for your product. So super important. If you didn't see that session, go back and definitely watch the first one before you finish this, if you're watching this on a recording. So then our second session was acquisition strategies and owner finance offers. So once you know where you're going to go and start talking to your sellers, it's important to understand and have empathy. So understand your seller's motivation and their needs, right? Because you can't help them if you don't understand what it is that's keeping them up at night, right? Like what is the problem that you're there to solve? Sometimes it's a bad house. Sometimes it's a person in a bad situation. Typically, a person in a bad situation has a bad house, but not always. We've bought plenty of houses that are in move-in ready condition. Somebody just needed today, they needed to have that house taken care of. That was something about that house was keeping them up at night, whether it was making the payments or they lived on the other side of the country or there was just something. And in doing this for 12 years, there's a million reasons why people need to sell. And it's hard to ever try to figure that out until you actually talk to somebody. So even within that, how do you effectively communicate with them, right? There's certainly, you don't want someone to just call you up and say, hey, I want to sell my house. I'll give you $20,000, take it or leave it. Well, that's probably not a good strategy, right? Nobody wants to be talked to like that. So we talked about how to communicate with them, different personality types, how all of us have one of four personalities, and it's very easy for you to communicate with people who have a similar personality, right? Because people like to talk and be around people like them, but that's only 25% of the population. How do you communicate with the other 75, right? Another thing that we covered was how to talk to those sellers and explain to them what's coming next, right? Again, we are the experts in this. Generally, when you're talking to somebody, this is a house they've inherited, or again, there's some problem, and you need to explain to them and be super clear about what's coming next, because this is new for them, right? Most people either buy or sell a house with an agent, and in a case where that doesn't work, it's your job as the person that's there to solve their issue, to help them understand what the next step is, right? So what the next step is as far as closing, and if you're going to have to be able to get into the property a couple of times, for pictures and to show buyers, those types of things. So that was good stuff there. And then we spent the second half of that session talking about how to make multiple offers, right? So you're going to do a lot of marketing. You're going to throw out this huge net. You're going to bring in a lot of people to talk to, right? Well, not every single person can take a cash offer, right? For whatever reason. Maybe they just can't for whatever reason. They don't want to. There's something in their head that says, I've got to get X number of dollars. So in those types of cases, because you start out by understanding their motivation, their needs, and what their issue is, how can you find a way to solve that problem in a win-win situation, right? And I gave you some examples of purchasing properties with essentially no money down and how that looks after 5 or 6 years. So we talked about a couple of properties that I sold in the last 2 weeks that I think we had less than maybe $2,000 or $3,000 in both of those properties, and we netted almost 190,000, right? So super powerful way to build your portfolio, right? Wholesaling is really great. Everybody loves it. I love it. I've been doing it for a long time. And you can make some really great checks, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000. I saw one today where somebody had a $150,000 check. It's fantastic, a great source of cash. But let's be honest, most of us, the vast majority of us, get a $30,000 check. Most people spend it, right? Hopefully you're putting some aside for taxes. Don't not do that. That could be bad. But most people aren't putting 20 or 30 or 40% of that away in like an IRA or an investment account, right? Most people spend it. The reason that I like the owner finance properties, now you start creating a rental portfolio that when you stop, right? Because we don't want to do this forever. We talked about, having an end and what that end looks like. How can you have some consistent passive cash flow? So we talk quite a bit about that. If that makes sense. Okay. So what we're going to talk about tonight is KPIs, and that's key performance indicators for anybody who does not know, because there was a time when I didn't know and was afraid to ask. So KPIs, and that is just something that we're going to really detail that out tonight. How you look at your business and see if you are achieving the goals and the metrics that you think you are, right? Because oftentimes you're not if you're not tracking it. So how are your systems tracked, right? How is your marketing being tracked? How is your lead generation being tracked, your acquisitions, your dispositions, your closings, right? And then when all that's bundled together at the end, your business, how are you tracking the things that make you money? All right. And then after all of that, we're going to talk about virtual wholesaling, because I know that's what a lot of you are here to see tonight. So our company, we run a 7-figure nationwide wholesaling company. We're based here out of Chattanooga, for anybody that's new and didn't see the other ones. And we're working in 30-something cities / markets right now. I think we just picked up one in South Dakota today. I know we sold a commercial property in Michigan this morning, and we sold a duplex up in Knoxville today. So those were just 2 of today's deals. So we're active in this business, and we do this every single day. That's why we do these Zooms at night, because we're actually running a business during the day. Okay, so let's move on unless anybody has any questions. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about systems and KPIs and why they're even important. Here is I can tell you that I've been doing this for 12 years, and the very first boot camp or kind of week-long class that I went to, this was one of the things that a guy who's a really good friend of mine talked about, keeping track of like postcards and different things that you're sending out. And I'm like, that's stupid. Who wants to do that? It's really boring, right? Because we talk about different personalities, and I'm not the personality type. Like accounting and bookkeeping, those aren't my things. I just want to sit around and talk to sellers and buyers and do that kind of stuff. So what happens if you're not keeping track is you don't understand why your business isn't growing. You don't understand where you have holes in your system, right? maybe you think you're making a lot of money and you're really not, because you're not tracking costs. So KPIs are important. If all you want to do is 1 or 2 deals a month, make $10,000 or $15,000, it's probably not that crucial. You can get by with sending some postcards or just door knocking, something like that. Because you're not keeping track of a lot of stuff, right? You're like, well, I sent out $500 worth of postcards. I got 1 deal. That deal made me $10,000. I'm good, right? And that's kind of where I started. And for anybody that's new, I'm going to talk out both sides of my mouth here a little bit. So the most important thing when you're new is getting traction, right? Is getting a deal, getting a check. Okay, that's what's important. So I don't want you to misconstrue anything that I'm saying tonight. Like, work out these systems before you go talk to people. That is not what I'm saying, right? I'm not saying, and this is a common thing that I see in Facebook groups all the time that have to do with real estate, is should I go and get my LLC first, and I need to build a no. The most important thing you need to do is a revenue generating activity. Go out, talk to some people, get something under contract, sell that contract, cash a check. That's the most important thing, right? So what I'm talking about is not for somebody who hasn't done a deal, right? I'm going to assume all of you are either at 1 or 2 deals, maybe a month. And if you're not, that's okay. What we're going to talk about tonight with KPIs is, maybe, once you get a deal or 2 and you start to grow, that's when you want to start tracking some stuff. Okay. So I don't want you to think, oh my God, I have to do these things before I can do that. No, go talk to people. Talking to people is how you make money. So it's not important if you can do 1 or 2 deals a month, but depending upon your strategy and your team, that's going to determine what you need to track. All right. So there's lots of ways to generate leads in this business. Okay. The way that our company predominantly generates leads is through SMS texting, right? Text blasting. I have friends that generate almost every one of their leads through like AdWords, SEO, Facebook marketing. I have other friends who still do postcards. I know some people here in town in Chattanooga that only work this market, and they use bandit signs, street signs that say we buy houses, right? A buddy of mine down in Florida, he does radio ads. So there's a lot of ways to generate leads, and that's the only kind of thing that we really don't delve into, in these sessions, is because there's so many of those, right? And you have to do something that really fits your personality and what you like, right? So some people enjoy talking to people, some people don't, but kind of pick a strategy there that works for you, but then you have to track it, right? You have to track the money that's going into it and the results that it's giving you and how much of it you're actually doing, right? So we'll talk quite a bit about that. So really, I'll be honest with you, I really started tracking in earnest probably 4 years ago when I got a new partner, Tag Thompson. He has a master's degree in economics, so smart guy, right? I'm the talk to people guy, the visionary person. He is the here's how we're going to make it work. Here's how we're going to take that squirrel brain of yours and turn it into an actual business. So, I would not have a virtual nationwide wholesaling company if it wasn't for having somebody like him that could do those types of things. So, so super grateful for that. So what should you track? Well, unfortunately, the bad news is everything, right? And that's terrible. I hate it. I hate it. I used to hate it. Now I actually enjoy it because I could very easily see what's going on in my company, and I can identify problems pretty quick. So the bad news is, unfortunately, everything. But again, when we talk about what you're going to track, this is not, it can be like, hey, I haven't done my first deal yet. Here's how many postcards I've sent out. I'm not saying you can't do it. I just don't want this to, having spreadsheets to have precedence over going out and talking to people or getting on the phone with people, right? So I just want to, again, super, super clear about that. So what should you track, right? So marketing by type. Again, we just talked about there's lots of types and ways to do this, right? Ultimately, all of us, we run a marketing company. Real estate just happens to be our widget, the thing that we're marketing for, right? I tell people all the time, if 55-inch flat screen TVs becomes so valuable that buying and selling them on, person to person is more valuable than houses, we will change to that. There'll be a way to find a list of those people who want to sell those types of property or those types of TVs. So marketing, right? What type of marketing are you doing? How much money you're spending, and what is your budget, right? So if your budget's $1,000 a month, are you spending 1,000? Are you spending 1,500? What is your budget, and how are you doing that? Leads generated, right? So marketing is money that's put out, right? So there's inbound and outbound marketing, right? So let's say I spend money on postcards to get inbound calls, right? That's a form of marketing. I could also, so postcards, I'm waiting for somebody to call me. Another type of marketing would be, I've hired 2 people to sit in my office and they just cold call people, right? We talked about pulling lists and how you find those people. So that's an outbound type of marketing, right? Same thing. I mean, you still have to track it, hours on the phone, calls made, what your connection rate was. On your postcards, it's number of postcards, type of postcard, because maybe, after a couple of weeks, you're going to test a second type of postcard, right? You're going to do some split testing. And if you're going to do that with cold calls, maybe you're going to use a different script. You should definitely track that to see which one's producing a better result over time. One thing I don't recommend is just wholesale changing everything, from week to week. Do something, when it's working, make a slight adjustment, test that slight adjustment, and see which one performs better. And then over time, what you'll do is you'll really craft your marketing to something that really starts hitting every single time. So marketing, leads generated. Once you have a lead that becomes a contract, right? You're going to track those as well. Now you're going to track property dispositions, which is the other side of your business. Now you're selling the deal. Okay. So you need to keep track of that. Once you have that deal sold to an end buyer, right? You're going to want to track that just for the mechanical part of your business of, what's happening, what kind of revenue am I about to generate? And that's kind of where you get paid. That's where most people stop. One thing that I implemented in my company a year or 2 ago, I can't remember, we started tracking closed deals and dead deals. And we'll go way into that. And I will show you kind of what that looks like. Right. So what we're going to do today, what I'm going to show you is I'm going to give you kind of some basic examples, and then I'll show you what our company does. Right. So, and the reason that I've differentiated that is because if you're a solo person or you have 1 or 2 people in your company, you probably don't need anything super, super complicated. What we do in our company, and I was hesitant to even show it because it's just what we do, right? Okay. We have 17, 18 employees. Like every one of these sheets that we're going to talk about, I have one person that that's their life, is to keep track of that. And they run that department. So kind of is what it is. So let's talk about a basic marketing tracking, right? So we're going to look on this. We've got it by week, right? So you'll have 52 weeks in the year. And these are just some examples, okay? So driving for dollars leads, right? What I used to do when I started my company, or not even we didn't even have a company, 12, 13 years ago, is we drove neighborhoods. We're just looking for dumpy houses, wrote down the address, came back, and my wife would send them a letter or a postcard or something, right? So if this is week 1, this is actually week 20 of the year, I think, but how many of these leads did you get, right? How many did you send out? Now, there are some really great apps where all you have to do is drive by the house, take a picture, and it sends off a postcard. It's amazing, right? We didn't have all that stuff way back in the day when I started. So driving for dollars leads, right? SMS, text messages sent, right? If you're like my company, we send a lot of text messages, a lot. So we track, and I'll show you here in a second, how many messages we send, what the deliverability rate is, and then what kind of responses we get from those. talked about cold calling. So if you're gonna just jump on the phone and just start calling people, and again, other than driving for dollars, none of the rest of these are just random. I'm not saying pick up a telephone book and just start flipping through. We talked about in the very first, and then I think that both sessions, how to identify who these people are that you should be calling and talking to. So yeah, so cold calls, right? Postcards. One thing that I used to do that was super successful is I would pull lists of sellers who've owned their property for 10 years. Maybe they're out of town, and we would send them postcards. Hey, we buy houses, it doesn't matter any condition, that type of stuff. So how many postcards did you send out this week? Right. And you can either literally, I used to buy them 10,000 at a time, which is not expensive. It's like $200 to buy 10,000 postcards. We would have them here. I would print a label, stamp, out they go. I've also used a mail house, right, where I just upload the Excel list, and the mail house prints the postcard, labels it, and shoots it out. So 2 different ways that you can do that. Postcard for absentee sellers. Absentee, again, I'm sure everybody knows this, but absentee just means the person does not live at the house where the tax bill is sent to, right? So what does that mean? Probably means they're landlord. Maybe a postcard or a letter you're sending to vacants, right? You can purchase a list of properties that are vacant by zip code or by city or by state or whatever. It depends on how much money you have to spend, and then you can mail to those people. That's a great list because it's actually compiled by the U.S. Post Office, right? I don't know if you've ever driven down the road and you start looking, boy, that house looks empty. There's probably a little green sticker on the side of the mailbox, and that's the postman puts those stickers on so he doesn't have to stop there every day, right? So until somebody starts mail there and he starts getting new mail, there'll be a green sticker on there. So if you're driving for dollars, you can also be looking for those green stickers, and that will tell you that the post office says it's empty. So, but anyways, no matter what you're doing, maybe you're doing one of these, maybe you're doing 10, you're going to have, maybe you did, 300 driving for dollars leads, 5,000 texts, 400 cold calls, and then a bunch of postcards. You're going to keep track of them, right? Week over week over week over week. So, because what you do today will reflect in your closings. Read that as checks, right? As checks in your pocket in 45 to 90 days, because there's a cycle, right? There's a cash cycle of how long it takes from the time you put money into marketing to when it comes out the other end of the funnel and comes out as a check, right? I think I'll show you if we can read it. I think we're at like 38 days right now from contract to contract, right? But there's probably an additional 10 to 15 days in front of that where we do marketing and, talking to sellers before we actually put it under contract. So, so if you're having a bad week and you're like, man, in April I was cashing checks like crazy, and then all of a sudden May is just crapped out on me. Well, we can go back. If I was a consultant or coach for you, we'd go back and go, hey, what did you do 45 days ago? Oh, you were on vacation for 3 weeks. Well, of course, right? You didn't have anybody taking care of your marketing. So this is predictable, right? And that's what we're looking for. And the other reason that you're going to want to do it is because it keeps you on track and it keeps you honest with yourself, right? So you'd be like, oh boy, I really killed it this week. And you look back and go, well, 2 weeks ago, maybe I sent out 10,000 texts, and this week I sent out 2,000, right? So you can look at that and gauge where you're at compared to previous weeks, right? And once you do this over 4, 5, 6, 10 weeks, and you start getting predictable results, well, now you can look back and go, oh, okay, this is how many text messages I need to send out and get a deal, right? This is how many people I need to cold call. This is how many postcards. This is how many driving for dollars leads, all right? So what you're trying to do is take as much of the guesswork out of this business as you can. And that's one thing that we've really honed in and fine-tuned over the last couple of years in our company, so that it's very predictable. Over the course of a month and a quarter, we know exactly what we need to do to generate so much revenue. Now, where you will be in 30 days is not where you will be in 2 years from now, right? Because there are things that you're going to just get better, right? I want you to imagine, somehow you get down on at Fenway Stadium on the green, and somebody's, throwing fastballs at you. You're going to suck today, but after a week or a month or even a year, you're going to start hitting those things, right? So what's going to happen is your conversion is going to start to get better. And we'll look at that here in just a second. So hopefully that makes sense, right? Your conversations are going to get better. You're going to hone in your text messages. Your cold calls are going to get much more natural, and they're not going to feel kind of so clunky, right? So so those things will get better, but you want to track it over time and see how you're doing. So yes, whoop, one more. Okay, so the one thing that will absolutely just kill your business, and came up with this a while back, a year or so ago for another presentation, but the cycle of death. And this is, I've talked to so many people, and I've got a ton of messages since we started these sessions, and people have been watching them as, hey, I did great like in December, but now, now it sucks. Well, what happens is we all go through this cycle, right? We, especially, and this was the same thing for me when I kind of worked by myself or had a super small team. So we put a bunch of money into marketing, right? We just looked at marketing, whether it's postcards or driving or whatever it is, right? A lot of energy and money goes into that, and generate a lot of leads, start talking to a lot of people, and then we get contracts, right? So we get contracts, but then we stop that because now I've got 3 or 4 contracts, maybe 5, maybe 6, maybe it was a great marketing campaign. Now I've got to take those contracts and I've got to sell them to whoever my end buyers are, right? So I become very focused from marketing and acquisitions to dispositions, right? So what happens is now I'm doing a different kind of marketing. Now I'm kind of doing the other side of the coin. Now I'm marketing to people, cash buyers who want to buy my property. I start looking at, again, we've talked about all of this, but who are people who are going to be likely buyers for my property in the area where my deal is, right? So we kind of go up and down in this cycle where we do a lot of marketing, we get contracts, we have contracts, everybody's excited, and now we've got to sell those properties, and we're working hard. We get a buyer on a property. Now we've got to do the transaction stuff. So now I've got to deal with the title company and work out whatever issues there are with that, because sometimes there's nothing and sometimes it's crazy, like dead people and stuff. So we do all that, cash a check, and you're like, oh, I made it. I've arrived. And then you start thinking, oh my God, I have no new leads. And you have to start all of that all over again, right? So what I want you to take from that is somehow you have to maintain your marketing, right? If you stop your marketing, it's just the death of your business. And what happens is now every 3 or 4 months, you're starting your business again from scratch, right? You're at the bottom of the hill and you have to bike up that hill one more time. And it takes a lot of energy and a lot of effort to get that wheel moving again, right? So no matter what your business is, if you're selling muffins out of the muffin store, and you spend all this time making muffins, and then you sell your muffins, and then you're not prepared for tomorrow. Now tomorrow morning you have to go back and do shopping, and you have to have some kind of process, and that's one of the things that we're talking about tonight. So wholesale cycle of death. Send out your postcards, cold call, driving for dollars. You're negotiating, you're getting contracts. You start trying to buy or building your buyers list. Doing marketing for that, you're negotiating with buyers, you're opening escrow, you're resolving title issues, you're gathering stuff, you're getting to the end where you're cashing a check, and then bam, you're right back to the start. So these two kind of sides of the business, this side and this side down here, the best thing you can do is to find a way to make those run continuous, and lots of ways to do that. You can outsource your marketing. You can bring in somebody that can do those types of things for you, kind of lots of stuff, and we can talk about that more. So cycle of death. So here is actually from our company's site. So you can see we send anywhere from 10 to 20,000 text messages a week. We track how many were delivered, the deliverability rate, which we're at 86, 87%. So we fluctuate a little bit. We had some list issues a couple weeks ago. You can see where that kind of reared its ugly head. We send out super targeted, flyers to a couple people. We don't do a ton of this. How many leads we revived, how many leads we got from SMS, ringless voicemail. We don't do a ton of that, but we will do some. Actually, the provider that we had kind of crapped out on us at the beginning of the year, probably around February. And I just got an email that they're back up and running. So that tells us how many leads we got per week, SMS to leads, but cumulative average, we average about 108 leads per week, right? So that's something we can track, and we can kind of look at it week over week and see what's going on. Like here, why did we drop to 79 and 57? Oh, okay, we had some list issues, right? And RVMs kind of tanked right then. So we were using a lot of those RVMs to balance us out. So this is exactly right off of our back office. I just copied it about an hour ago. All right. So what form of marketing did you deploy, right? So again, we've talked about why you want to track this. So it will generally take you 45 to 90 days to get a check, right? But if like we talked about, if something goes wrong, like why did I get no contracts this week? Why am I not generating any dollars? But you also want to be able to go back and track on each particular lead where that came from, right? So you may find out that your SMS leads perform a lot better than your cold calling leads. You may look at maybe my Facebook ads. Those people, when they call in, are hot, and I'm converting 1 out of 10 of those as compared to maybe 1 out of 40 SMS leads, right? Because SMS is a little bit more random. You can do the best job you can trying to pick the list of people that you're going to talk to, but then you have to skip trace it. How reliable is that? Whereas if you put out a Facebook ad, maybe those leads are going to be warmer, right? Here's the thing, because we've talked about this, everything is like the scales of justice. Text blasting is incredibly cheap, right? You can send 20,000 text messages if you've got somebody to click the button that many times, for far cheaper than it is to put ads on Facebook and Google. They're really expensive. So you have to look at what's right for you. Like I've had a hard time doing Facebook ads, but I know people that are killing it, right? So it kind of depends on you and what you enjoy. So when was your lead initiated? What marketing did it come from? Like track those things, because you may find over time that, like for us, we put a ton of money into Facebook ads and they just crapped out. They just weren't any good. So we stopped doing that because it was like $2,000 a week. You want to track your spending over time and watch for results. Maybe you start, like for us, we started with Facebook, and then we changed late last year, and then we switched back to more cold calling, right? So track those things, and you can see which ones are producing, and then the ones that are producing, you want to start to slowly increase your spending. Don't double it, right? Doubling it is not going to double your results. It just doesn't work that way. So slight increases, on the stuff that's working, kind of balance it out and start to wean off one of the other ones, kind of clutch and break. And most times when you're changing something or starting a new lead source, you're not going to see a huge like jump all of a sudden the first week. Typically doesn't work that way. We have some sellers that we talk to for 2 and 3 months. Doesn't mean all of them are that way, right? Some of them we pop them into a contract after the first week, but I mean, there's a time period, right? And this is one thing that you can track from the time you got an initial lead to the time it became a contract. What is that average time, so that and again, that goes into your cash flow churn, right? From the time you deploy the money to the time that you actually cash it, what does that look like, right? And wholesaling is the fastest of all ways to make money in real estate, right? So wholesaling is shortest term cash. Rehabbing is kind of a medium 3 to 6 months, depending upon how good and how fast you are. It's a little quicker now because the market's so hot. Longest term money is like being a landlord, right? That kind of stuff. So, depends on what your strategy is. But in wholesaling, you definitely want to keep track of that. So unless you're doing something incredibly proactive, like going out and driving for dollars or door knocking, inbound and outbound marketing, depending on what you're doing, whether it's like postcards or cold calling, it takes a little bit of time to catch a little bit of momentum and turn those leads into something. All right. So again, we're going to talk about a bunch of spreadsheets. Some of you are going to love this. Some of you are going to hate it, depending upon where you are in your business. I used to not like it, but now I kind of do. So in all of this and what I'm going to show you, some of you may have a really fancy CRM, thing that keeps track of all of your data. We use FreedomSoft. Some people use Podio. Some people use Salesforce. There's a ton of them out there. Use the one that you like. And if you're using one, there's probably a great way to track all this stuff within your system. I can't show you 30 different CRMs tonight. But if you're just starting out, you don't need all of that stuff. You can certainly do all this in Google Docs or in Excel for free. And that's exactly how I started. So, so again, first thing we talked about was spending money on leads, like different types of leads, or I'm sorry, marketing. So spending money on different types of marketing, driving, postcards, SMS, Facebook, SEO, whatever it is, it doesn't matter, right? Once those people start calling in, or you're calling out and getting people that are motivated, you want to track. You want to track how many people are turning into a lead, right? And a lead is pretty simple for our company. We don't have a ton of qualifiers on it because we put them through a process. But in general, it's the right person, right? You actually got the right person on the phone. They want to sell, and they want to sell in the next 90 days. That's it, right? I don't want to only talk to people that want to sell in the next week, because I'm going to lose that follow-up type person. And, there's so much money that's made in the follow-up of, geez, 6 months ago, you called me and talked to us, and they'll call back in and they'll say, hey, I've kept your number. You told me to call you back when I was ready to sell. Now I'm ready to sell, right? So again, you're spending a lot of money on these leads. You don't want to just throw them away. So again, we can track it the exact same way. How many people did you talk to that were super motivated, right? Like ready to go right now? How many of those people were, it was the right person. They're kind of thinking about selling. Maybe something's going on, but they're not ready to do it right now, right? Maybe they know they're moving in 2 or 3 months. They're looking for some options. Maybe one spouse wants to sell, the other one doesn't. Maybe they've got tenants, and God, if they can just get rid of these tenants, they want to sell. Whatever it is, right? You have motivated people that are pretty ready to go now, and then you've got people that you're going to put in a follow-up, right? You just don't want to throw that away. And then you're going to have the right person who wants to sell in the next 90 days, but maybe they're not interested in a cash offer or your owner financed offer, right? So that happens. We're not going to be the solution for everybody. So now we're tracking total number of leads by week, right? So you can see how this is important. How many leads did you get this week? So I have students and clients who will call me and say, well, I just don't understand what's going on. I'm like, well, fantastic. Tell me what kind of marketing you're doing. Well, I drove and I got, 20 names this week, or 20 houses that were vacant this week. I'm like, well, I can tell you exactly what your problem is. You're not putting enough people into the top of your funnel. So, you just need more, right? Instead of 20, go out and get 100 a day. Unless you're in a super small town, there's plenty of people out there that want to sell, or, properties that are distressed, right? We talked about this last time. Yes, it's a hot market. I get it. People want to put stuff on MLS, right? But there are still people who life is happening to. Unfortunately, people are still getting divorced. People are still, losing their job. Maybe they haven't been able to make their payments. They need to sell the property. People inherit properties. People pass away. Those things are still happening. Don't sell yourself on this idea that there are no properties out there to buy, right? I drive by them every single day. Get up in an airplane, fly over your city, fly over your state. There's a lot of houses out there, right? So don't buy into that. So you're tracking how your leads break down during the week. Maybe you had 5 motivated people, you put 10 people in the follow-up, and you had 30 that weren't interested. Okay, great. So let's write that down, right? And over time, again, you're going to track that. Are those numbers, if you're getting the same number, if you're getting the same number of leads, right? Are there more people that are motivated? Because maybe you're starting to get better at talking to people, right? Depending upon how long you're doing this. And I'm not saying like you're Jedi mind tricking somebody into selling you their house. Don't do that, right? Because if you do, and I've had employees that have been able to do that stuff that are really super persuasive, what happens is they'll sign the contract and you'll have a problem all the way down the road, all the way to closing, because they're going to change their mind. It's bad, right? So don't do that. So how do you use that info to track it and get better results? Because you can start to look at what has my performance been, or what has my team's performance been, right? Even more important than you, because at some point you're going to have to step out of this role in your business if you're doing it now. but how is, in this case, like an acquisitions person, how is my acquisitions manager, how are they doing, right? So yes, so lead tracking. Okay, goodness. Okay, so we do a little bit of, again, that was all acquisitions stuff, the acquisition side of your business. But now we're going to talk about dispositions, right? So it's pretty straightforward here. Some of what I'm doing, we're going to talk about two different forms, and this is stuff that we do in our business. So one isn't so much a form as it's a place for me to look at, whether it's on a piece of paper or I keep it up on one of my monitors, actual deals that are pending right now that are ready to be sold. So if somebody calls in, I can look right at it and go, okay, 123 Main Street, price is 110,000. It's got a tenant. They're paying $1,500 a month, and that kind of stuff. So I'll show you that. But then the other one is more of a checklist of who needs to be doing what. So, and again, if you're a one-person show, maybe you don't need all of this stuff. But as you start to grow, I want you to understand what it is that you can use to keep track of your employees and make sure that they're staying on task, right? Because it's super easy to drift and bounce around. Okay, so here's an old one so that none of y'all could steal none of our deals. Not that you'd all do that, but just kidding. So, so here we have our dispositions agent, the type, right? Some of these are single families, duplexes, commercial families, sort of a mix. We don't do a lot of commercial and multifamily. Mostly what we do is single family. I keep the address up here, the city, state, zip code. I started keeping track of zip codes so that we could track them over time at the end of the year. So bedrooms, bathrooms, contract price, selling price, right? So Winchester, we were under contract at 115. Red just meant that I'd actually lower the price a little bit because it didn't sell. This one had some mold issues upstairs from a roof leak. So we had a little bit harder time selling it because the seller did not tell us that. So tenant, and then some notes, like none of these have rent amounts in them, which is weird, but was it a JV deal? When does our contract expire? Oh, there's one, rent for $650, fully rehab, right? So our buying contract date, so I'm keeping an eye on that because I know I have 30 days, right? I have 30 days where I have to move this contract, and then the status when it went under contract. So simple, right? This is just something that I created so that I could keep track because I have multiple dispositions managers who's, each one handles a different section. Some of these were on hold at the time. We were waiting for maybe pictures to come back or for the title work to come back, or I needed something from the seller. So we had some that were kept on, on hold and had not been released yet. So released meaning it wasn't on our website. I hadn't emailed it out. We hadn't sent out a text blast to buyers. That was just on hold. One of the other things that I sort of watch for here is I'm watching for the bandwidth of what our dispositions agents can handle at one time, right? So at this beginning of the week, each of them generally sell 2 to 3 properties a week. Rachel had sold 4 a couple of weeks ago. So we're always watching, I don't want to overwhelm them with 10 properties because then it gets to be too much. They don't know which one they should work on. So we like to keep them in that 4 to 5 range. And then even within that, the way that I run the team, or Taylor runs the team, she's my dispositions manager, is, we're always focusing on 1 or 2, like what are the 1 or 2 that we can sell today, right? Who have you talked to? What's hot? Who's ready to go? Who just needs like one thing answered or one problem overcome? And then they're ready to sign, and we can contract that one, move it to pending, and replace that property with a new one, right? So available deals. So that's that. Hopefully that's pretty self-explanatory. And again, you can add whatever columns in here that you want, whatever is important for you. So here is one that I created at the end of last year for our team. And again, so we have a big team. We have a lot of people. And if you're just you, maybe you don't need it to be this detailed. But what happened, the way our team is structured, right? So this all kind of picks up from the time where the acquisitions manager gives the disposition manager the contract, right? Meaning the acquisitions team has a contract with the seller. We're going to take that contract, we're going to sell it to our end buyer, we're going to, to assign that contract. So there's the contract is approved, right? So that means we're going to start. So in disposition now, we're going to start spending some money on it. Okay. So somebody's gone out and found somebody to do pictures and video, right? So if it's in your own town, maybe you're going to run over to do that. But if you're in Boise, Idaho, and you're based out of Orlando, Florida, you've got to find somebody there to do that, because we're talking about like virtual, like we're a virtual company. So this is some of our checklists. So our transaction coordinator has contacted the seller. So now it's under contract, but we know that the title company is going to need a certain amount of information, right? The title companies that we do, they have what's called a seller document. And what that is they want to know, like, what's the seller's full name? How many people are on the title? Is the seller married? Stuff like that they're going to need to process the closing. So we try to get all of that on the front side so that it's ready by the time we're ready to close out this property. The reason we start on that early is because people are always slow to respond. So then we've got maybe the seller doc back. If the property's leased, did we get a copy of the lease and the tenant info? And again, this is super detailed, and some of you are going to be bored with all this. Did we get the pictures and the video up on the website? All right. Did the person in my marketing department for dispositions, has she pulled a list of buyers? All right. And within that is, did she pull that list? Did she skip trace it? Is it compiled and ready to be worked? We'll send out an email to the buyers in that market. We'll send out a text blast to those buyers. We'll do a ringless voicemail to them. We're just going to drop a message into their phone that says, hey, Bob, this is David. I saw that you've got a property near one that I'm trying to sell. If you're interested in another off-market deal that's really cheap, just give me a call. Something super simple like that. Not specific like, hey, I've got a blue house at 123 Main Street with, 1 bedroom. Call me if you're interested, right? Because we want to generate calls, people that we can talk to. We don't want to, eliminate anybody who may end up being interested. So we also send out a postcard, right? So we take that list of buyers. If it's a market where we've been in continuous and we have a really strong buyers list, and we know that we're going to have more properties there, like take, for instance, Chattanooga or Huntsville, right? We've got some markets that we hit a lot because they've been really strong for us. Atlanta, right? So what we'll do is we have postcards that are kind of templated that we'll send out to the buyers that we pull a list of. Right? A property inspection is scheduled. That's simply a time when we're going to go out and show it to our end buyer. At that point, we've completed our selling contract, right? With the signed contract, we've collected our EMD. Now our transaction coordinator gets back involved. She sends all that to title. She clears the title. We schedule closing. We close it. Or sometimes we end up having to kill the deal, right? So these are all deals that we did, I think, kind of at the end of last year is where I pulled this from. Not every box is checked because sometimes it sells quick, right? So sometimes it sells before, we text blast. This was actually before this screenshot was taken from properties before we started really implementing the ringless voicemail. Now we do it on every single property. So what this does, this prevents you from doing 6 of 10 things, and inevitably never the same 6. We talked about this. It's a struggle. And this was born out of that failure that we had in our company. Was, hey, we need to do 10 things to sell a deal, right? Whatever. Maybe for you, it's 5 things that you want to do, right? Like we do 10 because we have people that can do these kinds of things for us. So, but anyways, we need to do these 10 things, and all of a sudden we would be going along and like, why isn't this property selling? And we kind of all sit here and look at each other and go, well, geez, we didn't send out an email to buyers, right? So now we just have a checklist. Somebody's responsible for their spot on here. And, we have weekly meetings. Everybody's together real quick. We kind of go through our properties and see if everything has been accomplished, right? So, easy. So here is actually, oh, okay. So this was a snapshot of pending closings that we had at one point earlier this year. I don't know, back in March, I guess. So this is another thing that I keep up on my screen, because I want to know how much revenue we have generated, right? How much revenue is pending that hasn't been realized yet. So, so kind of I look at these, the reason, that was actually a new column that we added, but I want to know who was the person that sold this contract, right? So if I look at it and I know I'm having a problem, I know directly who to go back to, who can talk to that buyer. What type of property was it? What the address is, city, state, zip code, simple stuff, beds and baths, contract price, what I actually sold it for. On that other page was maybe what it was listed for. Sometimes properties sell above, sometimes they sell a little bit below. And then what the assignment fee was per property, right? And this is actually sorted high to low for some reason. And at that time we had 211,600 in pending closings of revenue that was going to be generated. And then our transaction coordinator keeps notes in here, and then a pending closing date, right? So this is just a kind of a snapshot of where are we at, what's getting ready to close, you know, how much money is coming in. So now I can see, okay, hey, great, we're having a good month. I'm going to take some more of that money and put it into marketing so we can grow a little bit more. Okay. Okay. So, right. So that was pending deals that we're gonna close. Now we also keep a sheet for deals that have closed, right? So within that, what's the data that we're collecting? How are we using that data to get better, right? You know, so I know this will tell me where am I selling the most number of properties, right? Because remember, we keep track by zip code and by city and state, right? So over time, I can go ahead and isolate that data and go, hey, Alabama is kind of hit and miss, and then I can zero in a little bit more and go, oh, well, Montgomery's terrible, but Huntsville's the balls, right? It's really great. Or I can look at, you know, Georgia and say, man, we really struggle in Atlanta, but Macon, you know, Macon kills and Savannah kills. So once we keep track of this, now we can see where our wins were. But the one thing I'll tell you is you'll learn the least from your wins because there's the lowest amount of pain there, right? So everybody just gets excited, they cash a check, but you're going to learn far more from the deals that die in your company than your successes. And I'm not saying don't enjoy your successes. I tell people when I wanted my first deal so bad when we were first getting started, I'm like, I will run down Main Street naked and try to do a cartwheel if I could just get my first deal, right? So I understand. I remember it. You don't want to see all this naked, so thank goodness we didn't have to do that. But I mean, I get it, wanting to have your first deal. So, okay. So here are these are some closed deals. Was this last year? Yeah. No. This is early in this year. Okay, so that is the day of the, I don't know why I messed that up when I was copying it. So the first column here is we're keeping track of the day that we put that thing under contract, right? This is the date that we sold it, days between. And this one, right after we put it under contract, had a massive water leak. So we took some time for the people to get in there and remediate it. But then we sold it relatively quick, but our total days on this one was 172. Super long, right? That's going to happen. But we've also got ones that are 30 days from start to finish. So that's really good. We average, at the time when I screenshotted this was 45.4 days. So we talk about how long does it take, how long is your money out there before you can get paid? So I keep track of who put the property under contract, who sold the property address, city, whether it was mobile home, land, single family, multifamily, again, zip code, what we put on a contract for, what we sold it for, what our assignment fee is, and then we kind of keep track. This is our average buying contract, average selling contract, assignment fees for the year, and this is Zillow. We keep track of those estimates so that we can compare over time. So this is something that you'll want to keep track of. So at the end of the year, you can go back and evaluate your numbers. Okay, cool. So dead deals, what data are we collecting? Right, again, kind of the same question. How do we use this data to get better? And when we look at that and evaluate that that information, so here we're looking for where we failed, right? Unfortunately, you're going to learn more from your fail, hopefully, you're going to learn from your failures and you don't continue to do the same thing over and over and over again. But if you're not tracking it, that's when you tend to make the same mistakes, constantly, and you don't course correct. So one of the things that we really look at here and that I'm looking at is, was there a bias in picking a market or putting a particular type of deal under contract, right? So most people that are in business have these problems, right? None of us intend to do it. But I told a story before that said if I was going to start an ice cream truck, right? I'm going to do the little bell and I'm going to drive neighborhoods. Kind of a big boy, and I really like chocolate ice cream. But so my thought would be, I like chocolate ice cream. Everybody is going to like chocolate ice cream. But I start driving around and I don't really sell that much. So I start asking people, hey, what kind of ice cream do you want? Maybe they want strawberry and pistachio, right? So I had a bias in picking the type of ice cream that I was going to go to market with, right? And the market is going to tell you what it wants. You just have to listen. So in our case, was there bias in picking a market, right? I can tell you early on, we picked 2 markets that were just dumb. And I don't even know why. Like Tag and I've talked about it. We picked St. Louis and Birmingham. No idea where St. Louis came from. I still can't figure it out, but we started marketing there. Terrible place, especially if you're marketing for low end properties. And also Birmingham, we thought, well, we were already very solid in Chattanooga. St. Louis was a wash. Let's go to Birmingham. At least it's close. It's kind of a big city that's similar to Chattanooga, and we can drive there if we need to. It's about 4 hours away, and it was terrible. So we randomly picked these markets, and we don't do that anymore because we realized how bad it was and how much money it cost us. But is there bias in picking deals, right? It's very easy for people. We talked about this with people in rentals. If you as an investor think, why would anybody want to buy something that's not a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house in the best neighborhood, right? Like that's all people want because that's what I want, right? Now you have bias, and you're not making a decision based on data. So that's why in the very first session we talked about how to understanding where buyers want to buy should dictate where you do your marketing, right? So understand that there are buyers for every deals. Be in markets where it's easy to do business, where you can do the most business easy, right? We like that low-hanging fruit. As wholesalers, things happen fast, right? You can certainly be in the niche business, whatever you want to call it, of doing, probate properties or land splitting or any of those things. But to be, wholesaling where you're churning quick and you're going to do a lot of deals, you want to be on the low-hanging fruit plan. So here's a list of some dead deals that we've had this year. And you can see, like after the end of the first quarter, we look back and we saw, oh my goodness, like there's a trend here, right? Alabama, Montgomery, like we talked about that. Montgomery is a tough market. We had a couple, land, where is it at? Land was a dud for us. Some of these small infill lots just didn't work for us. So we can look at where the deals where we couldn't sell these deals, right? What type of deal was it? And then we have a reason why, like maybe it was rejected before marketing. The house or property was put under contract and it come over and we're like, absolutely not. You should not have put this under contract. It's either, unsellable, you're at the wrong price, whatever it was. Unable to find a buyer. That could be a lot of things. It could be we were trying to sell it too high. Could be there was issues with the property like mold or something like that. Property is obsolete. We literally contracted some land that was underwater. Who knew? Dolphin Island in Alabama got hit by the hurricane a couple of years ago. In the same week, we were targeting southern Alabama, and two different people we put property that the shoreline had washed away on. Now people were still selling those, and they were putting out houses on stilts. But anyways, it's kind of funny. Yeah, sometimes hey, we couldn't close on this because couldn't clear the title. Sometimes the seller didn't give us a lot of time. But what you want to do is have this information so that at the end of the year or quarterly or mid-year, you can look back and go, hey, so where, because all of these cost money, right? Every single deal on here cost us money, time, and energy, right? That our company expended. So we look at this every single week and go, okay, where did we mess up, right? Because if you're not willing to do that and be introspective with yourself and say, hey, I'm not perfect, let me learn from my mistakes, you're going to go broke in this business. You're just going to keep spending money in places where you shouldn't be. So so we use this twofold to train our acquisitions people. Hey, don't do any more land, right? Like these, please don't get any more land deals. We're having a really hard time selling them. And if you are, get them for $200. Let's stay out of Montgomery. So we adjust over time and kind of course correct and try not to do those again. So we've talked now about tracking a lot of stuff and the systems that you put in place. Your marketing, how you track your marketing, how you track your leads. Like once you start talking to people, motivated, not motivated, not interested, putting things under contract, how many contracts are you getting for your leads? Once you're under contract, now we've looked at like what are the forms that you use kind of on a daily basis to keep track of what you've got, because it's very easy. Like it happens to me because we have so many properties coming and going all the time where somebody will say, hey, what's going on with McKinley Avenue? And I'm like, not a clue what you're talking about. I don't even know what contract that is. So I keep them up. You can't see it, but I've got 2 monitors here. And on one monitor, I've always got these spreadsheets, and they're all kind of tabbed at the bottom so I can bounce back and forth. But also I sit with my transaction coordinator just about every day. And hey, where are we at on closings? What do we need to do? Is there anything I need to get involved in? So that we can have those conversations quick, right? Like this, every meeting is at 2 hours. That's not what I'm talking about. But we want to teach you how to effectively run a business and, how to kind of compress time and not make a bunch of mistakes and have the harsh learning curve. So once you've got all that figured out and you want to expand your business, right? Because I'm assuming you do, because today's talking about virtual wholesaling. So yeah, so how do you expand your business? So let's talk a little bit about virtual wholesaling. I think most of you should know. I know there are a couple of new people on here. Okay, so virtual wholesaling, it's just a fancy term for wholesaling in other markets, right? I'll tell you, until I started it, I was incredibly against it, and I've railed in the different Facebook groups with people that it's a terrible thing. Not terrible, but that you probably shouldn't do it. So what are the only times in my opinion, y'all can do whatever you want. I'm just telling you, in my squirrel brain, my thoughts. So why should you even consider it? One, you've maxed out your home market's bandwidth, right? And so I can tell you, for me, like we're in Chattanooga, we've been here for June of 09, whatever that is, 12 years, 11, 12 years, whatever. And there was just a point where our company wanted to grow. Like we wanted to grow and do more business, right? We wanted to get bigger because, we wanted to add to our team, and making money is fun. So, but there's like a saturation point of what you can do in any market, right? Because you're going to have a list of buyers, right? But I found that if I send out property on Monday, I don't want to send out a second property on Monday afternoon, because what happens is the guy or gal who looked at it Monday and now like, oh, hey, that's a good deal. They start thinking about it. Okay, let me run by there. Let me look at it. Let me run my comps. Let me do my due diligence. And maybe they get partway through that. And then at 3 o'clock on Monday, I send them another property. So now they do this and they start looking at this one. And what happens is I've just exceeded what those buyers can do, right? So there's no way for me to push out 5, 6, 7 properties in 1 week. I've got to drop it out there, and I've got to give it a little bit of time to set and marinate and have somebody make a decision. All right, so that's the first thing. And even if you're in Phoenix, right, like a big city, 4 million people, you're still only going to have, if you've got that buyers list, there's still just a limit of what you can put out there per week, right, or per month. So if you want to expand, that's when you go to another market. And our company, we want to do 30 to 40 deals per month consistently. And it's much easier for me to do 30 deals in 15 markets, right? 2 per city, than try to do 30 in all one city, or even 15 in 2 cities, right? So as you grow, going into different markets will solve that problem for you. And then I have a lot of students who, will call me like when we first start, hey, somebody, where was it? Some suburb of Seattle. The other day I was talking to somebody, and hey, he's talking about, hey, I just can't find any deals. And my first answer is, well, you're not doing enough marketing. And he was driving for dollars. And like, okay, let me pull up your city, 25,000 people. And it's a super high end market. So not going to be a lot of vacant properties there. So unfortunately, the answer is, in that case, you probably do need to go out and start working in another market. All right. So why it's great. And again, I was against this for a long time for people. And I'll tell you why in a second. But once you have a system in place, right? Once you've figured it out and you've got something that's replicatable, it's very easy to take that and just now go to new markets, right? Once you understand how to evaluate a market, how to find buyers, now you know what buyers want. Now you deploy your marketing. You've got people who can take inbound calls or make outbound calls, talk to sellers, put it under contract. You know how to put it under contract because you understand how to comp your property, and you understand, how to put it under contract at a price where you can sell it to a cash buyer and still make a spread, right? So you've got a system in place, right? And now you can cherry pick markets, right? So early on in our company, when we were picking markets, we said, well, on the off chance that we might have to go visit those places, let's pick nice places, right? Let's go to San Antonio. Let's go to Tampa. Let's go to Savannah. So you can pick markets however you want, right? Maybe you've got a friend who, works in Louisville, Kentucky now, and he's going to help you go do properties, right? As long as the numbers make sense and the market's viable, then pick that market, right? So everybody's going to pick markets for different reasons. So what are some reasons not to go virtual? So one, if you have not maxed out your home market, and like for me, that's Chattanooga, maybe you're in Boston, maybe you're in Miami, maybe you're, wherever, right? Wherever you're at, New Orleans or Baton Rouge. If you haven't maxed out your market, I would say do not go virtual, right? Learn what you're doing, figure it out, get it to where it's replicatable, and you've got a system in place that works, right? It doesn't take forever. This isn't like, I'm not saying it takes 5 years to get a system that works, right? I've got students where we've got them up and running in 6 or 8 months, and now things are running very good, and now it's time to start expanding out. The one reason over time of 10 years of this that I've seen people want to start going virtual is because they're afraid to go out and talk to people. Right? I mean, you might be in the wrong business. They're afraid to go meet people, and they're very super introverted, and they think that doing it over the phone is going to be easier. I can tell you, it's not. When we talked about this in the other session, when I'm standing in front of somebody, like it's very easy to build rapport and to get into sync with them, and mirroring and matching and all those things, right? Because now we have body language, and there's just so much stuff. It's so easy to do. When you're on the phone, all you've got is the tone of your voice and the things that you say, and that's a harder skill to master. So don't think I'm going to go virtual because I don't want to talk to people. Right? It's not insurmountable, but it's a different skill set. You definitely have to talk to people. And it's easy to fail because of the unknowns, right? If you don't understand how to pick a market, if you don't, know how to do good marketing, if you don't have somebody teaching you how to talk to sellers and do all these things over the phone, it's super easy to fail and spend a lot of money. I know because I've done it. I've put a lot of marketing on credit cards in the couple markets that we went to before we figured out what we were screwing up. And don't do that. Because I don't want the thing that's discouraging for me is to see somebody do that and then like, this doesn't work, real estate sucks, I'm quitting. Well, real estate works really great, right? I mean, really great. you just want to not make foolish mistakes. So in talking about like foolish mistakes, right? So here's kind of like our whiteboard graveyard. What I can tell you is when we started this business, that's part of tag there, kind of hidden behind one of the boards. We had a very clear idea of how all this was going to work, right? It's going to work very linear. It's going to be super easy. These are all the markets we're going to go to. It's going to be a piece of cake. And there was nobody really to teach us, so we did everything by trial and error, and like it's evolved over time, over 3 years, to where we figured out all the things that did not work, and really focused on the things that did and maximize those, and we put systems in place. So I just don't want anybody to think like, oh, we just, I don't know, like somebody handed us the golden ticket on how to do this. We did this through trial and error and have figured it out, and we were just basically too dumb to quit. So that's how we kind of got here. So let's talk about virtual wholesaling and some of the obvious challenges that you're going to have, right? Okay, so finding buyers, right? That's should be the first thing you think of, right? That was the first thing that was in my head. And I can tell you, we talked about this in the very first session. The same way that you find buyers in your market, and once you figure that system out, it's the same thing that you're going to be able to do repeatable over and over and over and over and over again. In our company, we've got a very clear process. Miss Narissa handles that for me. I don't even have to tell her. She just knows. She's done it enough times. It's not super complicated. She goes into we have some software that she uses, and she pulls those buyers. She takes those buyers, she skip traces them. Now we have phone numbers and emails, and we like you saw on our paper, we call them, text them, send them a ringless voicemail, send them an email. Now we're having conversations with cash buyers, right? So finding buyers, that's a challenge. You want to be able to overcome that, but understand that it's not insurmountable. Some of the things that I can tell you that don't work. Doing joint ventures over the long term is not sustainable, right? So let me see if I can go back. Like one of these here, like our plan, my eyes aren't good enough, and I didn't get new glasses this week like I was supposed to, but one of those was like our original plan was we were going to go into cities and we were going to joint venture, right? And similar to the I don't want to talk to people problem, we thought, well, how else can we do this? I don't want to hire somebody in every market. I'll just find somebody local to joint venture, right? What that means is, I'm going to call my buddy Danny in Birmingham, and I'm just going to send him these contracts, and he's going to sell them, right? And Danny's a great guy, but what ends up happening is he's got his own deals that he's working, and even with the best of intentions, right? And we're buddies, like he's going to sell his deals before he sells mine, because in a joint venture, we're splitting that deal 50-50, right? So if he's got a deal where he's going to make 8,000 on, and this deal is going to be 10,000, but we're going to split it, it's for 5. Like, I don't blame him, right? Like, of course, just human nature is what it is. He's pushing that 8. So that's a problem. We've tried, like we paid a lot of money for a course one time, and the answer was using agents, right? Well, maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. I have a lot of horror stories of where it didn't work. Sometimes it does, but you can't base your business on that, right? You don't want to ever base your business on something you don't have control over, right? And one of the reasons that we're successful and why, hopefully you all will be, is because we're very aggressive about going out and finding buyers. So we still use agents today, but it's not my primary source of how I'm going to move that deal. Like it's like we're also using agents, but we're also calling voicemail or ringless voicemail, blasting, texting. We're doing all of those things to go out and find buyers. But I have an agent in my office, and she's able to do this for me, and it's very low impact for her and doesn't affect her day too much. But you have to be able to build your own buyers list fast and on the fly, right? So you get a new deal today and it's in Ocala, Florida. How am I going to get that list so I can be up and running tomorrow, right? So we talked a little bit about that. So like everybody has these mental blocks that are in your head. This was mine. Don't know why, because we do it every single day now. But man, I'll tell you, for like a month, this was like a thing. I could not figure it out. And I'm going to tell you right now, taking photos and doing inspections and doing showings, right? Because so remember, think of like what's happening, right? You've got a contract. It's in Ocala, Florida. I'm in Chattanooga. That is 350 miles away. How in the heck am I going to do this, right? It's, it's just not that complicated. Now we have a process, right? There's a process for everything because what we do is we figure something out and we document it so that we don't have to recreate the wheel over and over and over again. So you have to hire somebody. I'll tell you what we do. We go on Craigslist. We have a very simple ad. Hey, I'm looking for somebody that can go take, 50 to 60 pictures of a property that we're buying and take a video of the inside and outside of the property. Here's what it pays. We pay $70. You guys can pay whatever you want. Some areas you pay more, some areas you pay less. You'll know, right? If you put out $70 and you don't get any responses, bump it to 100. So that's how we hire them. Those people call in. We've actually got a sheet that we send them that shows like, here's what we expect. Here's how you take pictures. There's a little link you can click on so that you can watch one of us taking pictures. We actually videotaped Taylor going to a property and taking pictures, like how you do it, right? Seems like it's pretty simple. Take a picture, but what happens is if go into your living room tonight, take some pictures from the middle of the room, and then take some pictures from the corner. Noticeable difference, right? So we have to tell people these things because these aren't people that probably do this all the time. A photographer, but a lot of times you're getting a handyman or you're getting, just some mom who wants something to do in the afternoon and she gigs. So taking photos and doing inspections and showings, like you have to hire somebody, okay? And so let's say in this case, there's a seller there. We're sending this person over to take these photos. We will have that same person go back later and show the property to our end buyer. So that way there's some continuity between the person that works for us and the seller and them seeing them twice or 3 times, right? We don't want to just keep sending random people over there because that makes people nervous. So going virtual, some other problems, learning to negotiate with sellers and buyers over the phone, right? Like that's a thing. It's a little bit of a different tact. It's a different, skill set. So you want to learn how to do that. It's just different than negotiating in person. Here's a big concern. I hear this a lot. How do I keep buyers from going around me and going direct to the seller, right? Because you're going to call people and you're going to talk to people in, LA and California and tell them that, you're selling this deal and it's a, 223 Monte Rosa Boulevard or whatever. How do you know they won't go directly to the seller? So one thing is by having great rapport with the seller. Like we'll have sellers call us and say, hey, yeah, this other person was trying to get this thing under contract, but you and me were good, right? We're solid. You're going to close, right? And we're like, absolutely, we're going to close. But if you feel like that's going to happen, I teach my students how to do a memorandum of contract. And that's simply something that you record with the county where the property is located that basically stops anybody else from, it puts a cloud on the title. I'm sure a lot of you understand what that is, but what that does is it keeps somebody else from going around you and cutting a deal with that seller. Because what will happen is when they try to go to closing, separate from you, the title company is going to say, oh, there's this notice that you, Mr. Smith, are under contract with NPL. What are you doing? We can't close this. All right. So it's like a speed bump in the road. And then they call us and then we figure it out. We have sometimes a heart-to-heart conversation with them. So recording a memorandum, very simple. We've got those forms. Closing your deal in 20 to 30 states all at once, right? Like you're not all of a sudden tomorrow going to be in 20 states. But one hurdle that we had to overcome initially was even when we were in 4 and 5 markets, is I had a transaction coordinator, but maybe in 4 or 5 markets, she's dealing with 6 title companies. It's a lot. I mean, I'm just going to tell you, because every title, it's like 6 different vendors all doing the same thing for you at different places. And they all have different needs and they want different things. And, one wants this kind of paperwork, one wants that kind of paperwork, one will do this type of deal, they won't do that type of deal. So it's like literally juggling sticks of dynamite, trying to keep all that up in the air all at one time. What we do, there are a couple of nationwide title companies out there. They don't do all the nation, all the country, all the states, but they do the bulk of them. And yeah, that's what I recommend for you. We have a good partnership with one of them that does our stuff. So you're going to grow, right? Like that's what we've been talking about. That's what everybody wants to do when they go virtual. How do you build up your team to handle all this volume, right? So, I mean, that's something that you've got to account for if you're going to do this. So, what's that going to cost? Do you have that money projected out? Do you have a couple months of runtime? Because one thing I can tell you for me, from if I just look back at the time when I worked at Chattanooga, super small team, and we just crushed it here, right? We like making a lot of money in Chattanooga. But as I wanted to bring on another partner, and now that basically if we just stayed in Chattanooga, well, my money cuts in half, right? Because now I have a partner, even though he's going to do some of the work. Well, that sucks. Nobody wants that, right? Everybody, you want to do more. But in that time where we start to scale up, you're going to be investing new money into new hires and new systems and marketing and growing your business. So you expect to make just a little bit less, right? Maybe not for long. Like that time period depends on how quickly, how fast you can compress that amount of time, what kind of help you have. If do you have a coach, you have a mentor that can kind of get you over those hurdles really fast. But there is going to be some lag time in there. And even if you're a solo person, like right now, I'm going to tell you exactly how I grow my teams. So remember, at one point, I was the only person that did all of this, right? I did all of it. The marketing, talking to sellers, talking to buyers, talking to title companies, all of it, right? It's terrible. It's great because you make all the money, right? But it's a hustle, right? How long can you do that for? It's sooner or later, it's going to wear you out. So, and I'm not saying it's not good for a season. A year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever it is, definitely, if that's how you have to start, for sure, do it. But at some point, you're going to get to where you need to bring somebody else in. So the way that I did it in my company is think of like, ninth grade biology. You have an embryo and it breaks, right? So you have one and it splits off and you have two, right? So the way that I recommend you do it, y'all do what you want. But the way that I did it was I broke it into acquisitions, dispositions, right? Because you remember the cycle of death. It would make no sense for me to bring two people on and both of us do dispositions, right? So when I broke it apart and I have acquisitions and now I have dispositions, now acquisitions always getting contracts, right? That's all they do. They get a contract, send it over, get a contract, send it over, get a contract, send it over. And dispositions, like they're not worried about getting contracts because this guy over here, he gets contracts, right? So when it was just Tag and I and my wife, she did the bookkeeping, Tag did, he went out and got deals and I sold them. So very simple, right? Now we had sustainability, right? So then I'm handling dispositions, right? So what happened was, again, at some point, it's just too many deals, right? So I hire somebody new and I break apart my business, right? The disposition side, right? So what I started doing was training somebody new to talk to buyers, right? And then I handled some buyer stuff, but then I handled all the transaction coordinating, right? So that person was Taylor. And right now she's been with us 3 or 4 years now. She runs all of our dispositions. So now within her job, right, she's busy, busy, busy. Tag's doing the same thing on his side. Now he's got another acquisitions person. Now he's got another a person who can do the marketing for him. So he can take that off his plate so he can focus. So they're starting to build a team over there the same way. Now we're doing the same thing in dispositions. So now Taylor, we hired her, somebody else to start talking to buyers. And then she started kind of focusing more on the transaction stuff, right? So, that's the way that you grow is max out a position. Somebody really learns it, split it in half. This person trains this person. So that's the shortest version of, building up your team, build it one thing at a time, split people off. And managing the team, like, are you the person for this job, right? This is where people, like, entrepreneurs are one thing, managing is a different animal. Some people can do it, some people can't. Not everybody's good at managing people. I'm here to tell you, I've I've been doing this for a long time, and I've seen people that are great, and I've seen people that are terrible, and nobody's good at everything. Please, do not assume you're going to be awesome at everything. There's going to be just some things that you'll do because you have to do for a little bit of time. But once you get built up enough, bring somebody in for that. Like in our company, we're going to hire a COO this year in the fourth quarter. So somebody that can manage the day-to-day stuff that allows us to work on just different things. So going virtual, those are kind of some of the obvious challenges that you're going to have, and some solutions to try to help you out. Okay. So we've been going a little bit long tonight, but so kind of some takeaways on going virtual. Yes, the process itself is very much the same. Okay. We have to identify a place that we want to work, right? Market. We're going to pull a list of those people. We're going to do some type of marketing. Somebody's going to talk to them. Then we're going to, once we have a property under contract, we're going to market for buyers. Somebody's going to talk to those buyers. We're going to sell the contract. We're going to close it, right? So those are basically the same. There's going to be setbacks, right? Do not be discouraged if something happens and it just doesn't go perfect. Remember the whiteboards? I've got like a book of those. Someday we're going to put in one of those little Etsy books or something. Like, here's all the ways that we failed because we didn't know what we were doing. So like that's going to happen. Pace yourself. Sometimes I tell people, if you're nervous and very risk averse, start with a small amount of money first. Get somebody to help you if you want to go fast and not lose a ton of money. That's pretty self-explanatory. I wish we had somebody when we first started. There just didn't really exist on any kind of scale. But keep your home market as a solid base to fund expansion. So the one thing I talk about, a lot of ways that we screwed up, but the one thing that we did have that we never let go of was Chattanooga was solid. Like, we're good here. We'll put our company up against anybody. Either in town or somebody that wants to come in and mess around in our market. Like, we're good here. Like, I got a property today, got pictures of it, sold it this evening. So like, we're good here. We know our market. We have buyers. We know exactly what they want. So we've always used Chattanooga, and we kind of have 3 base markets now, but we use those to fund future expansion, right? So hopefully that makes sense. Don't if you're in Atlanta and you're doing great there, go, I'm not going to go here anymore. I'm going to Charlotte, right? No, keep doing what you're doing and then build on top of it, right? Everything should be building blocks. Okay. So going virtual, it's fantastic. There's some challenges, but none of them are really insurmountable. Okay. So a couple irrefutable facts, right? So one thing is for sure, it's impossible to scale or grow without learning how to effectively duplicate yourself. And this is one thing that I had a big problem with, which was one of the reasons that I did not want to scale early on, right? Because I didn't want to spend the time to figure out how to do those things, right? Because it's boring. Somebody's got to write some stuff down. You've got to figure some stuff out, and then you've got to teach somebody like to duplicate you, right? So I've had to do that over and over as we build teams. So I've got to kind of make them understand how my brain works and how this process works, right? So I think we talked about, or I told you, when we hire a new dispositions manager, right? Somebody who's going to talk on the phone to our end buyers. Like, we have a 4-day solid 4 days of training, so we can kind of take some of this and put it into their head so that we can help them. So we do just a ton of training, and what that does is that gets them up to speed faster, right? I don't want to just say, hey, you're going to call buyers today. Here's this phone book. Good luck, right? No, we want to have a plan. We want to train them, and we want to give them a process and a system so that they can be up to speed very quickly. All right. So we started 2 new people. I think last week was their week on the phone. First week, one of the girls has 2 contracts, right? Because there's a system. So having that will really compress your time. But avoid the pitfalls and follow somebody who's already done what it is that you're looking to do. Right. And that doesn't mean maybe you're going to do it exactly like that person, but you're going to take kind of what's useful from them, just discard the rest. But take those things that fit with your personality and what will work for you and implement them, right? But speed of implementation is super, super important. So, so where is it that you want to go, right? Like, here's a question. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our inner circle here. So what do you want to do, right? That's always the question. We talked about that before. And, you have to know what you want, right? We talk about starting with the end in mind. Like, what is it that you want, right? So you have to be clear on that. Is it, that you're doing 2 deals a month now and you want to do 10 or 5 or 15 or 20? Like, be clear on where you want to get to, and then, we can help you get there quicker, right? Because I don't spend, I've been doing this for 12 years, before I got to where I was doing 30 deals per month, right? 25, 30, whatever, 32 on a good month. So how can you compress that time as fast as possible, right? So can you do that in 18 months? Absolutely. Absolutely. We have people that are doing that. Don't spend 9 years trying to figure it out. And then the question, how would you like for me to work with you and to help you kind of take what we've done here and implement that in your business, if that's what you want, if you want to grow and make more money and maybe go virtual, right? I like to tell people, learn from our mistakes. Do not make the same mistakes over and over and over again. And I tell people that too, like, I may mess up once, right? But I never mess up the same thing twice. Because our contracts, our leases, all those different things, like when we make a mistake, we go in, we fix the process, and we don't do that again. Because, even though it's in my head, we're not going to do X, Y, and Z, I have to put it in the process so that whoever out there, and kind of behind you is the office here, but I don't want that person to make that mistake over and over again once we figured out the flaw in our business, right? So we've talked about a lot of stuff in 3 sessions, and it probably sounds like a lot, right? It's a lot of stuff to do. There's a lot of things to get done, and that's true, right? So I don't want it to be overwhelming. Like, if you just want to do 1 deal, 2 deals a month, like, all of this stuff isn't probably necessary for you. If you want to scale up, then you need to start implementing these things in as you go, so you don't spend 4 years just struggling and beating your head against the wall of, why can't I get past 2 or 3 or 4 deals a month? Like, what is the problem, right? Like, where am I making a mistake? Because I can tell you how I look at my business all the time, because I'm not maybe mired in some of the smaller minutia, but as a business owner now, I can look at what are the things that we're doing wrong and how can we fix them, and that just over time, we just start to move faster and faster and faster. So seems like a lot of stuff, but you still want to grow and make more money, right? Hopefully everybody is okay with that, all right? Making more money. But the only way that we do that is to do more deals. So my wife, and I love her and she's awesome, but she might say, like, hey, I want a new car, or hey, I'd really like to go back to Paris. I'm like, cool. You know what that means? 1 more deal, right? Like, that's how we think about things, in our house and in our company is, hey, we'd like to get a new office. Great. How many deals is that? Right? So it's not money for just the sake of money, but it's like, this is something, an experience that we want to do, or we want to have a thing. And the answer to that is just always doing another deal, right? I had a partner at one point, and we would drive through town and be like, that's a house we sold to go to Paris. So if you think about it in those terms, real estate is just a widget to get you the thing that you want to do. It's really cool if you love doing it, but if you don't, that's okay. It's a thing that will get you to where you want to go. So we have this thing. It's called the Dispo REI Inner Circle. It's a very small group, but kind of here's my goal here, right? So I remember when I started in the Orlando market. I talked about that some. Man, I was lucky, right? I was lucky I got with some people that were willing to share, that were willing to help me, like, get started, right? But I didn't get everything from everybody, right? It just, one guy was a specialist in this, specialist in that, right? But what I'd like to do is kind of offer to people, if you like it, fantastic. But I want to help you compress time, right? So if I was to give you, like, our business systems, so the people that are in the inner circle, it's going to be a small group. I'm not opening it up to like 50 people, but we're going to help you. We're going to duplicate what we're doing for you. So not just dispositions, but how to talk to sellers, how to talk to buyers, market your deals, streamline that process, right? Because I don't want you to get a good deal that could make you $20,000 and then it gets messed up because you didn't understand how to get that thing closed, right? Or who to talk to, or how it needed to happen, right? How to have paperwork that's good every place, right? I have some friends in Texas and they're doing a deal here in Tennessee. And I talked to him yesterday. He's like, hey man, like, is this paperwork good? I'm like, I've used this paperwork all over the country. I promise you it's good. Well, it doesn't have X, Y, and Z. I'm like, well, you don't have to have that. I've had it run by attorneys in multiple states, right? So having good paperwork, right? How to build and train a team, right? One of the things that we give to our folks is the exact training manual that we use for our dispositions people, right? So if you want to, how great would it be to be able to go out, do an ad? We'll show you what ad we do on Indeed. You bring in somebody and here's your training manual, and it gives you something to work through, right? So how much is all that worth? You decide. I can tell you 10 years ago, I used to work for a coaching company, and back in those days, we actually went to somebody's house or city and we spent 3 or 4 days with them, but it was 25 to 35K. Now, luckily, we have Zoom, right? So we're all on Zoom, and it's much easier to do, and we don't have to charge that much because we don't have to fly, which is fantastic. So that's the goal of what we do with the inner circle, our students, is we want to get you up and running just as quick as we can and help you overcome all those hurdles that tend to cost you a fortune, right? So there's a lot of issues, a lot of things are hard. It's just easy. We want to provide you with another option. I've had people ask me for a bunch of years when I was going to get back into coaching, and we were super busy building our business, right? Like we actually do this. We do this every day. So it wasn't something that I was able to do. Now I'm kind of able to, I've got a great team. So, it's something we kind of answer that call to help some people out. But kind of what do you get, right? Everything that we've learned the hard way over 10 years, all the mistakes that we've made. Like, how great would it be to be able to just, hey, I'm having this problem, either a text or a call, and we can solve that problem instantly for you. And it's not something that's going to maybe cost you that $30,000 deal or, hold you up for 2 weeks, right? Because I remember when I was new, there would be some, now I look back, it's this dopey thing, but it was a roadblock for me. It was something in my head I didn't understand. And back then I didn't have somebody, right? Like I had to wait to go to a RIA meeting and try to pin somebody down in the corner and ask them, hopefully get the courage up to ask them how to do this, right? So, we want to be that resource, not just me, but the people that are on my team. So all the contracts and forms that we use to create our wholesale business, right? So it's more than just a buying contract, a selling contract, an assignment contract. Like there are going to be things that are going to come up where you're going to call and go, hey, like here's what I've got. I've got a buyer who's requesting an estoppel form. Do you know what that is? Yeah, absolutely. Let me send you one over and we'll go over real quick what that means and how you do it, right? Hey, the title company's looking for an affidavit of heirship. What is that? Oh, cool. Let me explain that to you, right? So it's that stuff. It's just 10 years of just institutional knowledge that we have in our team and that we can help you, right? So the tools, the techniques that can help you scale your business to 5 and 10 deals, 20 deals, if that's what you want, and live that lifestyle, which is the reason you got into real estate, right? We all love talking to people, I hope, and doing deals, but you got into it for more than that, right? We talked a minute ago about real estate being a vehicle to get to the things that you want, right? So what do you want? For me, I'm super clear about it, right? I know in my mind, I love to travel and I love to go out and have great experiences, go to different parts of the world and meet people and see how people live and just experience all of that stuff, right? I want to do more of that. And real estate's just the widget that I use to get there. I've been lucky to do so much traveling over the last couple of years before 2020. And hopefully we can get back to that pretty soon. But real estate's what's kind of driven that. So yeah, you didn't start this business to just barely get by, right? To, be doing one deal a month and be like, oh man, if I could just get the 5 deals a month, I could quit whatever 9 to 5 job it is that I hate, right? So how can we get you to that point, right? To maybe, you're leaving your other job because now you feel like you are confident that you've got stability in your real estate business, and once we get you there, how do we get you up to the next level, right? Because everything is going to be like a level, right? You're going to go up, you're going to level off, we're going to stabilize your business, then we're going to bump you up to the next level, right? I would never want to just have somebody just on this long, incline where it's just growth, and you just never have a chance to take a breath. And what happens is you start building on quicksand and your whole thing can crumble. So we're very intentional about building, letting you stabilize, build some more. Right. So yeah. So who's this for? Are you a serious investor? Are you struggling to get your business off the ground and you want to get up to 50 deals a month, right? Or 50 deals a month, 50 deals a year, right? And how do you get there, right? So it's not like all of a sudden I'm going to do 1 deal a week. Like, we're going to look at your business. Where are you at currently? What type of marketing you're doing? How do we help you, get that ramped up to the next level and start to be more efficient, right? More efficient with your marketing dollars on the acquisitions and the disposition side. How can we make you better fast, right? How can we get you better at talking to sellers? How can we get you better at being effective with buyers, right? So you're spending time and energy on the right people, and you're not doing marketing and people are calling you and saying, yeah, I want to buy this house. I'm going to get a loan from Bank of America so I can live there. Well, that's not our buyer, right? We have to understand that. And the marketing that you put out is going to bring you exactly what the marketing is intended to do, right? So if you do marketing for a purple house, you're going to get people who only have purple houses, right? So we want to do marketing for cash buyers so that those are the people that are calling you or you're calling them, and it's just effective use of your time so that you're not taking 4 and 5 weeks to sell a property. You're getting them sold in 2, 3, 4, 5 days, right? So for people who have had inconsistent results, right? So like everybody's had a good month where they sold 4 deals, 5 deals, 6 deals, and the next month, nothing. And they're like, well, I was like killing it last month. I don't know what happened, right? Well, one of the reasons that we have KPIs and we have those charts is that we can look back and go, hey, very easy. Let's identify your problem, right? Because if you're tracking it, now we know. Now we can look back and say, hey, very simple. Like, here's what you need to do. So for instance, a quick story in our business here with dispositions. Sorry, talking too much. We have I had a girl who was making a ton of calls, like 500 calls a week to buyers. I don't know if anybody's ever made 500 calls, but that's a lot of calls. Like, this girl's a machine. And we have, tracking for that, goes very deep other than those ones I showed you. So she was making a lot of calls, but her call time was very short, and her inbound calls, right? So the 500 outbound calls, you're going to get a lot of messages, right? Like, understand that even in those 500. So she wasn't getting very many inbound calls from messages compared to the other people on the team, the other dispositions agents. So we were able to look at that and go, oh, she's got a messaging problem, right? She's leaving the wrong message. It's her tone of voice. We started listening to her calls. We're able to adjust it. And today, she sold another property. So now we've gotten her back on track. So by understanding those KPIs and the things that we're tracking, like, they're all for a reason. We're not just tracking stuff just for the fun of tracking it. All of them have an end goal, and doesn't have to take a lot of time. It's not like a full-time person's job to track the stuff. You could even have a VA do it if you'd like. But when you're having inconsistencies and you're not trending the right way, we can go back in and look at those numbers and see what you got. So, and I know there was a time in my business when I was early on where people were just killing it, right? Like, people on the gram, well, there wasn't Instagram back then, but people on Facebook going on trips, first class tickets, whatever it was. And I would look at them and go, well, what are they doing that I'm not doing, right? Because I wanted to be doing that, right? I wanted to be successful. So this is for those people that are just tired of not having what you got into this business for, right? Not being able to go on the experiences, not being able to do the thing that you want to do with your wife, retire your mom, send your kids to college, whatever it is, right? Like, real estate is the vehicle to get you there. So you didn't get into this for no reason. So what is it? Dispo REI, Inner Circle, it's our group. We're about 2/3 of the way filled up right now, so I don't have a ton of spots left. But it's everything that you're going to need to turbocharge your business, take where you're at now and get you to where you want to be, right? Because I've done it. We've done it in our business. We've scaled out. We understand the pitfalls that you're facing, right? So how do you get your business running? How do you get all of your deals sold for the highest possible assignment fees, right? Who are those buyers out there that are going to pay the most, right? We can definitely help you get there fast, right? Like on your next deal, we can teach you how to do that. So what does it include? We have a 6-part course. It's a complete breakdown of the business, right? So we're going to do those. We run them. We'll start them again. I believe next Tuesday is when the next round starts. So they run about 90 minutes or 2 hours like tonight. And at the end, we'll do very specific questions. So what are the questions that you have about talked about and how it relates to your business? And it's a group setting. So when you ask your question, chances are there's 5 other people that had that same question. They were just afraid to ask. So we do that for every time we start a new group. Bi-monthly Zoom calls. I hate bi-monthly. I don't know about the rest of you. I wish you would just say 2 times a month. So 2 times a month, we have the entire group, the entire team. We get on these calls. We talk about accountability. So we're going to talk to everybody. If there's 12 to 15 people in the group, everybody's going to, hey, where are you at? You're going to have some things that you're going to bring to these calls. Here's how many deals I've got. Here's how my leads are going. And we're going to talk to you. What are the roadblocks that you're having, right? Everybody has a bad week, right? It happens, right? Even in our company, something happens. We didn't see it coming. We have a bad week. But, our goal is to help you get over those as fast as you can. Because I don't want a bad week to become a bad month to become a bad quarter, right? Because at the end of that, you're like, why am I even doing this? Do not ever say real estate doesn't work. I promise you it works. I'm leaving in 2 days to go to Tulum with 17 other guys that all do over 7 figures a year. I want to get as many people to that group as I can. So overcoming roadblocks and getting your business to the next level that you want and deserve, right? Again, you started this for a reason, right? You maybe started this as a side hustle or left your job or whatever it was, got out of construction because you saw you were doing work for these investors who were making 30, 40, 50 grand on a flip. We want to get you there as fast as possible. And the other thing is, direct access to me when you have a problem to overcome. I can tell you, I don't answer my phone right now unless you're stored in my phone. I just don't because it rings all the time. Too many people for some reason have my number. But, so you've got a problem. The title company calls you and says, hey, this thing can't close. You just need, we're just going to kill this deal. Give me a call. 1,000 properties. We've probably dealt with whatever it is. And there's always a solution, right? We used to have a title company that we don't use anymore. His name was Jeremy. He was here in Chattanooga. Some of you may know him. We're still here, but we called him Dr. No, right? Because everything was, man, we're just not gonna be able to do this deal. Something's wrong with the title. And what we had to overcome with him was, hey, Jeremy, let's talk about this. What can we do? Is there an exception to the title policy? Is there, an affidavit that we can get? What is it that we need to get, right? Like, how can we make this work? And you're going to be amazed. A lot of people that you deal with in life are just no people. Like, nope, don't know how we can do that. So that's what I want you to do. Call us so we can help you, close those deals, right? So how many of those do you want to lose? I can tell you, we've lost a couple before we figured that out. So, it's easy to lose those $20,000 and $30,000 deals, and it's really depressing when you can't do it. So yeah, so that's what you get. What does it cost? Everything has a cost, right? It's $3,000 one time, not your first month, but every month after that, it's $500. That's ongoing training and one-on-one help from me and my team, right? So if you were to lose one $10,000 deal, how does this compare? This is just pennies for that, right? I wish I'd had this when I was getting started, and I know everybody probably says that, but I can tell you in 2009, there was nobody that was doing this for anywhere less than $15,000. So I'm just about done. This is it. I'm gonna let you all go. Here's my goal, and the 7 people that I've got in this group that are starting next week, we're going to keep this small, right? It's going to be 10 to 12 people. I like to keep it small because I want to give everybody good value, right? So, and that's what I've tried to do for these over these three sessions, is to just pour into you, right? Like I didn't hold anything back, but there's only so much that I can do. in three, right? In three. That's, I mean, I spent all day today trying to shoehorn as much stuff in here, and how can I get it done in an hour? And here we are at 2 hours. So anyways, I love to over deliver and give you a lot of value. Here's what your membership includes. We have a exclusive, just a Facebook group that's only for the people that are in our group for this session and maybe for previous sessions. And also some members of my team are in there, like the people that actually pull lists. So if you have a question like, hey, where can I go and how exactly do I pull this list? Boom, she's in there. Taylor, who works for me, who really runs all of that on a day-to-day basis, she's in there, so she can answer those questions. You can direct message us, right through the Facebook group. It'll pop up. Somebody will get you an answer immediately, or if you need to, you can get directly a hold of me. All the forms that you need in your business. So, I want to just over deliver so that, because I want you guys to be successful, right? This is not something we do for, we're doing this like a money grab. Doesn't matter. We have a very busy and kind of profitable wholesaling business, but I do enjoy teaching and giving stuff back. So super easy, not hard. DispoREI.com. You can sign up there. I'm going to cap it. I promise. I think it's going to be at 12 is where the number is going to be, because I don't want to get too many people in there. So that is it. But so that's like where I'm going to cut this recording for the future. But for tonight, because you guys have been patient and hung with me, a couple things that I'm going to give this group that's coming in. So we talked the first night about zip codes, right? So I've already done the marketing nationwide. It was very time consuming and expensive, but I've already paid somebody to go in and find the top zip codes in every single state in the country, right? So wherever you're at, whether it's Arizona or New Hampshire or Florida, I already have a list of where the top zip codes are that you should be doing your marketing, right? So, and I'll share your state with you, the zip codes where the most flips are happening, the zip codes where the most cash buyers are happening, and those are different. We explain why, and also what the hottest MLS markets are, or zip codes are. So it's sort of like, think of that like a slot machine in Las Vegas, right? Where those three all come up at the same time, a lot of flips, a lot of cash buyers, hot. That's where you should be doing your marketing, right? How valuable is that to you? Pretty valuable. I know, because I was really excited when I figured it out. And the other thing that I'm going to give you is a day, for everybody who signs up, a day in the office with me and my team. We'll probably do these in small groups because, again, we have an operating business here and I can't just bring 12, people in here. It would just be too much of a disruption. So we'll bring people in small groups. Maybe I might be able to do everybody on a Saturday and just have my team come in then. But yeah, so I mean, that alone, I promise you, call somebody who's a nationwide wholesaler and ask them what it'll cost to come shadow them for the day and just ask their team questions. Like, first of all, they're not going to want to do it. But I've talked to my partner and convinced him that this is something that we want to do. So that's it. Like, that's what I got. Hopefully I can help you. If you enjoyed the last 3 sessions and you feel like you got a lot of value, I promise you we're just kind of scratching the surface. Like everything that we talked about, we can go for, we can go for 2 hours on almost every one of those slides, because, we've just been doing this a long time. And I want you to have access to kind of all that stuff that's jammed up in my squirrel brain here. So we've already, the course is all laid out. Talks about how to find buyers, kind of a little bit like we talked about here, talking to sellers. There's a full syllabus that you get. So each, when you log in, you have, here's what we're going to talk about. Here's any paperwork that you need to have ahead of time. Here's, your contracts. Here's, all of checklists, all of the things that you're going to have. And, if your business is just a little bit different from ours, we can help work with you and tweak all that stuff. So hopefully you've enjoyed these 3 sessions. This is it. This is the last one. This one is not going to be recorded or replayed, so it's only going to be good for the people that were here. But yeah, I'd love to have you on our team and in our group, DispoREI.com. That's where you can sign up for that. And if anybody has any questions, you want to unmute yourself, I'm happy to answer any that you have. I know it's late for the East Coast people here. Anybody?